It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Jen Cohen as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. As always, it's great to have you in studio with us today. Yavapai Silent Witness Director Steve Scourge back for the final time. Last show.
This is it.
This is my second last show I'm doing.
The last hurrah.
This year. Shelley Shepard from Game & Fish was here recently. She's retiring this
Really?
year. She's done.
Okay.
End of the year, she's done. So
Okay.
here's Steve Scourge coming in. You're done.
At the end of the month.
End of the month. November will be the end of Steve Scourge from Yavapai Silent Witness. Since what? Early 90s? We've been working together?
Oh, yeah.
Does that say?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, early 90s.
Yep.
Holy cow.
Been a good haul.
It has been, yeah.
Been a lot of fun.
Yeah. We've become friends over the years for sure.
Absolutely.
That's for sure. Let's take a little tour. I did a story with you a few weeks ago when you announced that you were gonna leave us,
Right.
leave us behind, and we kind of you can only do so much in 3 minutes.
Sure.
So we got 20 minutes to kill here today, and I thought we'd talk a little bit about your history because you've had quite a history. I mean, you've been in Yavapai County the entire time. Is that true?
I have.
Yeah. So take us back. Take us back. When did Steve Scourge first get the badge of duty?
Well, I grew up in Chino Valley. I was born and raised in Chino Valley. Back then, Chino Valley did not have a high school. So once you completed the 9th grade in Chino Valley, then they bused you into Prescott. So I graduated from Prescott High School in 1967. I immediately moved to Mesa and enrolled at Mesa Community College. Went there for 2 years. And then I transferred to ASU. ASU was a little bit too big for me. I didn't like it. And Mesa Community was almost a brand new junior college. So it was small. It was almost like a big high school.
Sure.
And I was really comfortable there, but not ASU. So after a semester at ASU, then I quit and I went to work down in the Phoenix area. Worked for a soda pop company, made really good money. And then I was bouncing at night. I had 3 bars that I was bouncing in periodically, but the main one was in the river bottom between Tempe and Scottsdale. It was called JD's, and while I was working there, it had some financial problems, and Waylon Jennings took over.
Wow. And
it became Waylon Jennings JD's. And we all got called back, and we went back to work, and Waylon was the boss, and he was there probably every other weekend. A lot of big name people came through there when I worked there. Chuck Berry made lots of appearances, Buck Owens, and it was a fun place to work.
Sure.
And I was employed for about 2 years, and then I decided, my time at Mesa Community was spent in their law enforcement curriculum. And I really wanted a career in law enforcement. So I quit the soda pop company and the bars, and I enrolled at NAU. And this was about 1971-ish. And during that time in NAU, that first semester, I heard that Prescott Police Department was hiring. And I have an older brother that I have a great deal of respect for, and I called him and I said, what do you think I should do? What's your feeling here? And he said, well, you're not going to know if you want to be a police officer until you become one. He says, why don't you test for Prescott and see if you like it, and take it from there. So I did, and the rest is history.
Wow.
The plan was to see if I liked it, and if I did, then go back to school and get my degree, and then maybe move to a larger department. But I liked Prescott. And in those days, the police academy was like a traveling road show, and it was run by 2 FBI agents. And they would come into an area, say for instance, Flagstaff. And everybody in northern Arizona that needed to be certified would go to that school. And those 2 FBI agents would pick local talent to help them teach the curriculum. And it was about I think it was about a 2-month study session.
Oh, wow, that's quick. Okay.
And when I hired on in June of '72, there were no classes scheduled. And so I worked for the PD for a full year. before I ever went to a police academy.
Oh, wow. So you were a police officer before you were a police officer?
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
And then I remember the chief of police calling me into his office, and he said, we just got reminded that you haven't been certified.
Yeah, let's make you legit, right?
So I went to training, and that particular training was held at the Highway Patrol Academy down in Phoenix, in Encanto. And it wasn't, it was just the facility. There was a highway patrol training class going on in one room, and our group was in another room. And so I finished that, came back to the PD, went back to work. I was on the street for another year as a patrolman, and then I was offered a 6-month stay in the investigation division if I wanted it.
Now, this is mid to late 70s? Early 70s?
Early 70s.
What was it like in the early 70s to be a police officer on the streets in Prescott? Whiskey Row. I mean, what was it like?
Well, it was a lot quieter than it is now.
Okay.
Of course,
right.
Not as much traffic. The population was a lot smaller, but you still had the same kind of crimes. I mean, we had homicides. There was a drug problem starting up. But it was low key. It was a smaller problem than you have nowadays. A full squad would be a sergeant and 2 patrolmen, and we normally had 2 detectives who only worked during the day. And if you needed a detective, you would call them out at night. If somebody took the day off, they weren't replaced with anybody. It was now a shift of 2. Okay. And if the sergeant was off, there would be 2 patrolmen that worked the street. Okay. And I can remember times when the sergeant would be off, and it would be myself and another rookie running the town.
Oh, wow.
But it was interesting, and you worked every type of crime. It didn't matter what came along, you worked it. And we also got to go to a lot of training, because you didn't have guys specialized in just sex crimes or crimes against persons or crimes against property. You worked everything. And so you got to go to a lot of training as a detective. Well, I was back on the street for a year. They offered me the 6-month stay in detectives, and I jumped at that. And at the end of the 6 months, I had several large cases that I was investigating. One was a homicide, and I was preparing to go to court, and I'm going to be wrapped up in court for probably at least a month. So they extended my stay in the detective division, and it turned out instead of 6 months, I was in there for about 14 months. Okay. And right around that 14-month period, the chief of police contacted me, and he said, we're going to create a new full-time position in detectives, and I'm wondering if you would like it. And if you do, it's yours. And I really like the investigation part of it over patrol and chasing taillights and stuff like that. And I jumped at that. So,
okay, we're going to take a break. Okay. Now you're a full-fledged detective.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yavapai Silent Witness Director Steve Scourge in studio today. He's retiring at the end of November. Website is yavapaisw.com for more information about the program. It's not going away. And then the phone number is 1-800-932-3232. Countywide back in just a couple minutes.
This is Bruce Morrow, Transportation Manager for Cottonwood Area Transit. Remember, we cover the entire Verde Valley and Sedona. Cottonwood Area Transit has you covered wherever you want to ride in the Verde Valley, all day, every day. Take Cottonwood Area Transit through Clarkdale, Verde Village, and from 26 locations in Cottonwood. With Verde Links, it's a quick and easy trip to Sedona every day. Don't forget our connectors to Camp Verde. Visit cottonwoodaz.gov for Cottonwood Area Transit and take a seat. Let's go ride.
How I define making? In the broadest possible terms, it is making something extant in the world that didn't exist. Everybody who's ever made anything is bringing something into fruition for a reason, and that act in and of itself makes us stewards of our culture. It's something that we're talking about. It's a response. Actually, it's telling a story. That's really what it is. And I include everything that could be made: painting, sculpture, welding, all of that.
Yellow is positive.
When a kid gets their hands on the world and learns that they can make their fantasy play, that they can make their reality, that's power. And as far as I'm concerned, everyone should feel that kind of power. There we go. If there's something that interests you to bring into the world, that's fantastic. Go figure out how to do it. Go tell your own story.
There it is.
And so I want to know why you make. Let's go.
Share your own Why I Make story today. Visit whyimake.org.
150 over 90.
180 over 111.
160 over 110. I had a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure looks like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a stroke are far from invisible or silent. If you've come off your treatment plan, get back on it, or talk with your doctor to create an exercise, diet, and medication plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
Welcome back to Countywide. We're sitting down with Yavapai Silent Witness Director Steve Skurja, who's retiring at the end of November. I was going to ask you what your best case was, but you're not coming up with the best case, but you've got quite a few.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, but I also, I don't want to step on any toes, so I have to be careful. But once we're off there, I can tell you a lot of stories.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. So, okay, now you're a full-fledged detective. How long were you with the Prescott Police Department as a law enforcement officer, patrolman, detective? And how
21 years.
And how many of that was detective work?
15.
Oh, okay. So you did a lot of cases.
I did.
Tons of cases.
I did. At the right towards the end of those 21 years, I kind of phased out of detectives, and I started the crime prevention program for Prescott. Another officer and I started the DARE program in Prescott. Then I became the PIO. I was also the volunteer coordinator. But along with all of this, and all the way back to when I became a detective, is when I first took over Yavapai Silent Witness.
Okay.
So that has always been a big part of my career. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've been doing the Silent Witness for 34
years.
Holy cow, 34 years. Okay.
Yeah, and it's been in existence in Yavapai County for 37.
Okay. So you were probably right there at the beginning of the concept of it.
I was. In the very beginning, the sheriff's office hosted the program. Sheriff Curly Moore was in charge. And there was about a 2.5-year period when the program first came to Yavapai County, and unfortunately, they didn't have the manpower at the sheriff's office back then to answer the phone 24/7.
Sure.
And it just wasn't working. And the sheriff realized this, and he asked the Prescott Police Department if they'd like to take the program over, because we had a larger staff. We could do it. And that's when I became the director.
Okay. All right. That made sense.
Yeah.
To bring it over to Prescott PD. And then it changed back to the sheriff's office just, what, a year or two ago? I mean, it was...
No, 11 years ago.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, man, time flies.
So after 21 years, I retired. And they hired me back immediately as a civilian to run Yavapai Silent Witness, to be their PIO and head up their crime prevention unit and the volunteer coordinator. And I did that for about 16 years for Prescott. And then 11 years ago, almost 12 years ago now, Steve Wall was the sheriff from Yavapai County. And Steve and I are friends, and he kept inviting me to bring the program, Silent Witness, from the police department to Yavapai County Sheriff's Office. And Steve's thought was, because it's a county-wide program, and I would have the flexibility of going all over the county, where with the PD, I was basically landlocked. For me to go to Baghdad, I would have to do a memo and get it okayed and this sort of thing. And working for the sheriff's office, that wouldn't be the case, because it's countywide.
Sure.
And Steve continuously invited me to bring the program over. And then about 11 and a half years ago, I felt it was time to leave the police department. And I talked to Steve. He had an opening and invited me to come along with the program. And that's where we are today.
Yeah, wow, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Can't believe it was 10, 11 years ago that Steve Wall was sheriff.
Yeah.
Not long ago.
Yeah.
I can't believe that. It's just amazing.
And this was, I believe it was in Steve's second term. So he had already been the sheriff for 4 years, and it was the first or second year of his second term, and it was just before he decided to retire.
You've got well over 40 years then in law enforcement.
I have 46.
46 years in law enforcement,
Yeah.
and all in
Yavapai County.
Yavapai County.
Yeah.
Wow, that's something.
Yeah.
That's really something. I wonder how many people can say that.
Well, probably a few,
Yeah.
but it's time to move on.
Yeah, let's talk about that. We've got a few minutes before we have to take a break. You've given a lot of time to the area and catching bad guys and taking them off the streets. What's Steve Scourge going to do now?
Well,
You're not catching bad guys no more.
I'm ready to set that aside.
Okay, all right.
But our daughter is getting married in January in Texas, and there's a lot of planning and whatnot to be done. So we'll be going to Texas right after Christmas, and we also have a son that lives in Texas, so he'll be a part of that. And just to give you a quick overview, we have a 32-year-old son who's a fireman, paramedic with Central Yavapai, and he and his family and 4 kids live in Chino Valley. And then we have a 30-year-old son who lives in Stephenville, Texas, who is a cattle feed sales rep, and he's single. But almost engaged.
Yeah, not for long.
And then we have a daughter who lives in Prescott, and she is engaged and is to be married in the first part of January. So
you'd be walking the daughter down the aisle.
Yeah,
giving her away in January.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Now my wife and I traditionally, well, the whole family traditionally goes to Las Vegas early December for the National Finals Rodeo. And that's on our calendar, and we'll be doing that in early December. And our son from Texas is flying in, our son from Chino's driving up, our daughter and her fiance is driving up. So we'll all meet there for a few days. And then it'll be Christmas. And then immediately after Christmas, my wife and I are going to Texas for 3 weeks. And the first part of that will be for the wedding. And then we're just going to do some sightseeing and go to some of the neighboring states east of there, and spend some time with our son in Texas.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of sightseeing coming up.
Yeah. And vacationing, and then
road trips.
We've got some other things planned, but other than that, just do retired stuff. Play golf, go fishing.
You gonna miss it?
I might miss it a little bit, but it really feels good.
Mm-hmm.
I've thought about retiring for probably the last 4 years, and every time I thought about it real seriously, I thought, I don't think I'm ready, but now I'm ready. I feel really good about it. Now, speaking of that,
he didn't retire because I told him not to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. He's thinking about retiring. No, you're not, Steve.
But the sheriff's office advertised for my position. We received 89 applications.
That's impressive. You told me that before the show. So there's a lot of interest in getting you out of there and replacing you.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But it's a good job. I mean, it's a quality position. It's a fun position, and it means a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But what they did is the sheriff's office staff went through those 89 applications. They whittled it down to 5, and one of those 5 applicants dropped out, so they kept it at 4. They did orals just recently with sheriff's office staff and also members of the Silent Witness Board of Directors, and they came up with a winner.
Okay.
So.
We cannot announce that winner, though.
We can't at this point because it's not 100% confirmed.
Okay.
So, but as soon as it is, you need to have him on your show.
And you're happy about this?
I am. And he and I have met.
If you are, I think I am.
Pardon?
If you're happy with this person, I'm pretty sure I'll be happy with this person.
Yeah, and you will be.
Yeah.
A very quality man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think not only is he qualified and comes highly recommended, but he and I have met and talked and spent a lot of time together just recently, and I think he's just a really good guy.
Because I would say Silent Witness is pretty much your baby. I mean, after only a couple years, not yours, but otherwise, you're handing it over, saying, okay, look, I've taken it this many years down the road, and this is the success we've had. We've taken this many drugs off the street. We've put this many criminals behind bars. We've dealt out all this reward money. So we got to keep that ball. Well, we got to take a break. We got to take a break. We're late with our break. Yavapai Silent Witness Director Steve Scourgeon is in the studio today. He's retiring end of November. Stick around, Countywide, back in just a couple minutes.
It appears these hot ashes are about to be dumped, which could possibly start a wildfire. How will Smokey deal with such a hot situation? The garden hose defense. Next, a thorough stir. Then another spray. And finally, feeling if the ashes are cool.
Oh, yeah.
Ah, yes, the selfie. A ritual practiced so frequently with this tribe, but not so much by Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Being prepared is a part of who you are, but it's especially important in the case of a disaster. Be informed about possible emergencies in your area. Make a plan that covers where you'll go in an emergency. Build a kit with the things you need to survive. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Start your plan today. Go to ready.gov/myplan.
We've got just a few minutes left of the program. Yavapai Silent Witness Director Steve Scourgeon is in studio today. He's retiring at the end of November after 46 years of service to the Yavapai County area. Best part of Silent Witness, and I agree with you on this.
Oh, it has to be Catch-22.
I agree with that, yeah.
To date, it just calls to the Yavapai Silent Witness phone line for Catch-22 felons. We've arrested 86 of them, and we've paid $43,000 in cash rewards to the callers.
Over the years that we've been doing this.
We
should mention we're not going to have one in December because you're out, new person's coming in, so we're not going to be able to have the typical. It sounds weird, the Christmas time Catch-22, but that's what it is.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
so
it is.
We're not going to have the December one this time, but I think probably by next spring, everyone's feet will be wet and we'll be ready to probably go again with that.
I think that's fair to say.
Catch-22 opened the door for, it put Yavapai Silent Witness on the map for me, because I remember we met when we started the Catch-22.
Exactly.
You contacted me and said, do you want to run this? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll run that. So we did the Catch-22 program. But what it did, I think, is it also brought awareness of Silent Witness to the other law enforcement agencies more of a forefront, where now I notice on press releases where it's, if you have information on this case, contact this or call Yavapai Silent Witness.
Right.
And it really has put it on the board, on the map.
I think so. I think so.
Because you don't see that, like I would say Coconino County, you don't see the Coconino Silent Witness. You see it on some of the releases, but not like you see Silent Witness. Yavapai Silent Witness, I should say.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
so
agree.
it definitely put it on the map.
I think it was 1997 that we did the first Catch-22. And we didn't do it twice a year, every year. Sometimes we did. So it was kind of hit and miss. But it was popular right out of the chute.
Oh, yeah.
And after the first one, we had citizens calling asking if we're going to do it again because they recognized somebody from the last one and got a $500 reward.
Yeah.
And are you going to do it again? And if so, when are you going to do it?
Even here, we got it down to a format to where this is how it's written every single day, and then it's got Steve Scourge in there talking about it. But it's going to have to be somebody new at some point in time. We're out of time.
Okay.
Thank you for all your service to
you.
Yavapai County.
Absolutely.
I'm glad to hear you're going to go off and see bits and pieces of the world. And
I am.
Congratulations on your daughter getting married.
Yep.
Your son almost engaged. We can't push that too hard, though, can we? Not just yet.
Yeah, exactly.
And have fun at the rodeo.
Thanks.
All right, that's today's Countywide. Thank you so much for watching and listening. As always, have a great day. We'll talk to you again next time.